Hello, you're on the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we'll discuss the situation in Ukraine as of April 17th, 2025. To summarize all the events of the past 24 hours, we can unequivocally say that Zelensky was apparently not lying when he stated that the Russian army would launch a large-scale offensive along the entire front line by the end of April. Today, the number of updates on the map seems to be off the charts. This might even be some kind of record, at least for 2025, possibly even since the start of hostilities. Before we begin, I'd like to sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps the channel grow. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. Now let's proceed step by step. We'll start with the Sumy direction, where the most important news is coming from the monastery area. Earlier, to be more precise, last evening, Russian sources began publishing objective control footage. In these clips, we can observe the first episodes, the first minutes of the presence of the Russian armed forces on the monastery grounds. There are also several scattered clips and episodes showing Russian soldiers raising the flags and banners of the Russian Federation, as well as the banners of various units that participated in the fighting for this territory. In one of these videos, we could see a Russian soldier hoisting a flag on the northern side of the Gornal Sviato-Nikolaevsky Belogorsky monastery, precisely at this location. We are fully updating the map of this monastery, although last night, around 11 p.m., the Northern Troop Group reported that despite the initial footage and many claims of the monastery being fully cleared by that time, combat operations were still ongoing. That is, Ukrainian units still maintained control over certain sections of the facility as of 11 p.m. Additionally, some sources reported a chaotic situation. Certain resources claimed that as early as yesterday afternoon, some Ukrainian armed forces units began retreating into Sumy oblast. Some attempted to cross the Pyol River, while others withdrew toward the settlement of Gornal. There are also reports that when Iskander missiles struck the complex, some basement areas and catacombs collapsed as a result. According to pro-Russian sources, a number of Ukrainian soldiers and units remain trapped underground in these ruins, currently unable to get to the surface and leave the monastery grounds. Meanwhile, today, reports indicate that the Russian armed forces continued their advance, pushing into the village of Gornal on the heels of retreating Ukrainian units. Fighting is currently ongoing there. To summarize, as of now, the UAF retains partial control over the settlements of Oleshnya, where fighting is also taking place, and Gornal in Kursk oblast. There is a very high probability that by the end of this week, the Russian armed forces may fully clear all of Kursk oblast, at least in terms of populated areas. Some forest belts and wooded areas might remain under UAF control, but naturally, no one will even mention that. Next, we move to the Kupansk direction, where a lot of news is also coming in. Today, objective control footage emerged from the settlement of Kamyanka, and Ukrainian sources published this video. In these clips, we can see FPV drone strikes on Russian units. This 58-second video contains multiple episodes of Ukrainian operations by the 3rd Tank Brigade. One of the FPV drone strikes was recorded precisely at this location. Based on this footage, we've made a slight update to the map, marking this structure as under Russian control. At the very least, the southern and eastern parts of Kamyanka are now firmly under Russian control, while fighting continues for the central and northern sections. Moving further along the Kupiansk direction, toward the settlement of Kupiansk itself, some pro-Russian sources continue to report fighting on the northwestern flank near settlements like Redkovka and Mirny. So now, active combat operations and Russian offensive actions are taking place in the triangle between Tishchenkivka, Kondrashivka, Radkivka and Mirna, with the likely goal of advancing toward Kupiansk from the northwestern side. That is, Russian units are currently advancing along this approximate route, while Ukrainian forces are attempting counterattacks to slow down the Russian advance. Next, we move to the southern Kupiansk direction, Lyman sector, where a large number of updates have been coming in. Over the past 24 hours, the map has once again undergone changes. The Russian armed forces have managed to significantly expand their zone of control, starting from the settlement of Lipovnov and extending to Novomikhailivka and Makeyevka. Let's take it step by step, beginning with the settlement of Nov. Some experts claim that over the past day, Russian forces have expanded their control in the southern part of Nov. Effectively, the entire southern section of this village is now under Russian control. We can see that the settlement is currently in a pincer movement, and it appears that within the next 24 hours, the Russian army will begin storming the central and western parts, from both the south and the north. There are also reports that Russian units have expanded their zone of control on the eastern outskirts of Novomikhailivka, though no geolocated footage has yet confirmed this. These updates are primarily being shared by independent analysts. Neither pro-Russian nor pro-Ukrainian cartographers have officially verified them. Additionally, Russian forces are said to have significantly expanded their control and straightened the front line between Novomikhailivka and Makeyevka. Please pay attention to the map. A vast amount of territory has now shifted under Russian control. Clearing operations are underway, and it seems the Ukrainian side has decided to retreat northwest toward Novyi Mir and Orikhiv, likely to avoid encirclement. We can observe that the Russian army continues its daily advance toward Borova from the southwest. For several days in a row now, additional map updates have been in favor of Russian forces or contested zones, indicating that Ukraine has so far been unable to stabilize the front line in this sector. Chasiv Yar, Toretsk front line. Now we move to the Chasiv Yar, Toretsk sector, where significant developments are also taking place. Today, objective control footage was published from the settlement of Orikhiv, a highly disputed area where different cartographers depict the situation differently. However, today's footage provides the first visual confirmation of Russian soldiers inside the village, including the capture of several Ukrainian troops. We previously marked Orikhiv and Novomarkov based on reports from the Russian Ministry of Defense, but until now, there had been no geolocated evidence from this area since possibly November. This is the first confirmed geolocation. That said, judging by the terrain and weather conditions in the footage, snow, sub-zero temperatures, it was likely filmed in January or February, meaning it's archival but still confirms Russian advances in this sector. Konstantinivka direction, Toretsk, Nelipivka, Konstantinivka Lyman. Now let's turn to the Konstantinivka direction, specifically the Toretsk, Nelipivka, Konstantinivka line. For the first time in a while, we have geolocated footage providing some clarity on the fighting around the mine along Highway 05-16. Breaking it down, at least 3 different reports have emerged today regarding the mine. Pro-Russian or neutral analysts note that after 6 to 7 days of intense assaults, Russian forces managed to break through Ukrainian defenses around the mine, securing positions on its southern edge. Meanwhile, pro-Ukrainian sources published a video showing FPV drone strikes on Russian assault groups near Toretsk, with one strike geolocated to the mine's perimeter. Based on these updates, most cartographers, except pro-Ukrainian ones, have adjusted their maps, suggesting a turning point in the battle for the mine. Despite Ukrainian counterattacks near Nelipivka, they have so far failed to dislodge Russian forces. If the mine falls, Russia will be able to restore or establish a supply line, allowing uninterrupted logistics to Nelipivka, paving the way for further offensives toward Konstantinivka itself. At the same time, reports indicate Russian advances around Toretsk, along with heavy artillery duels along the Siversky Donetsk-Donbas Canal between Toretsk and the villages of Pivdena and Pivnishna Dilivka. While no major map adjustments have been made yet, they are expected within the next 48 hours. After months of grueling battles for Toretsk and Chasiv Yar, it seems we are approaching a potential breakthrough, after which advances may accelerate significantly. Klyban Bix direction, along Highway H20. Finally, we turn to the Klyban Bix direction, along Highway H20, where the map has once again shifted in favor of Russian forces. Key updates from April 16th, yesterday. Geolocated combat footage confirmed Russian presence in a key strongpoint. The Russian Defense Ministry officially announced full control over the village of Kalinovi. Based on these reports, we adjusted the map accordingly. Kalinov and Valentinivka, confirmation today. Geolocated footage from Kalinov has emerged, showing Russian troops conducting clearing operations, moving through Ukrainian positions, and raising the Russian flag. While we don't adjust the map based solely on this, It corroborates the Russian Defense Ministry's earlier claim of full control over the village. Meanwhile, further east near Valentinivka, objective control footage confirms at least 2 Russian soldiers hoisting both the Russian flag and their unit's banner. The location was immediately geolocated to Valentinivka, based on distinct terrain features. Additionally, some cartographers note Russian advances northward towards Stara Mykolaiivka from the east, suggesting the southern Klyban Bix front line has collapsed. Ukrainian forces, despite efforts, have so far failed to stabilize this sector. Projected Ukrainian defensive line. The first serious Ukrainian resistance is likely to materialize only along the Alexandropol-Zaria-Romanivka line. Areas south of this axis are unlikely to be held due to geographical vulnerability, a pocket terrain unfavorable for defense. Russian momentum, making the Zaria-Romanivka line the next plausible defensive position for Ukraine. Pokrovsk, South Donetsk. Direction Novopavlivka and Kotlyarivka. Pro-Ukrainian cartographers now acknowledge Russian advances toward Novopavlivka, with forces closing in on Kotlyarivka. Control has also expanded south and southwest of Zaporizhzhia, though other maps had already marked these zones as Russian-held. Bodanivka, preparing for a ground assault. Massive FAB glide bomb strikes target Ukrainian strongpoints south of Bodanivka. Drones swarm Highway H-15, disrupting Ukrainian evacuation efforts. For 3 days straight, Ukraine has been withdrawing personnel and equipment west toward Komar, likely anticipating a large-scale Russian offensive. Footage of several destroyed Ukrainian vehicles along H-15 prompted minor map adjustments in contested areas. South Donetsk, Dnipro-Enahaya, and Shevchenko. Dnipro-Enahaya confirmed Russian control. After Ukraine's Ugledar tactical group claimed to have retaken the village 2 weeks ago, Russia released geolocated footage today, showing Russian flags planted across Dnipro-Enahaya, decisively refuting Ukrainian claims. Shevchenko, a pause in fighting. Following a major Russian armored assault 3 days ago, heavily covered by pro-Ukrainian sources as a failed attack, the front line has gone strangely quiet for 48 hours. A single geolocation showed Russian troops on Shkolnaya Street, but no further updates suggest Russian regrouping and troop build-up along tree lines. Imminent renewed assaults. Orikhiv direction. The storm begins. Mala Tokmachka. The gateway to Orikhiv today, Russian forces launched a large-scale assault on Mala Tokmachka, a suburb of Orikhiv, using tanks, BMPs, and quad bikes in disorienting maneuvers. Feints from one direction, main strikes from another, chaotic Ukrainian artillery responses, and Russian airborne landings. Geolocated footage confirms Russian troops breached the southeastern outskirts and likely secured a foothold. Strategic implications: Mala Tokmachka's fall would allow Russia to advance northwest toward Orikhiv's center. Parallel strikes near Kamyanske, where Russia previously cut supply routes, suggest a pincer movement may develop, possibly toward Novoandriivka. Is this the real assault? While signs point to a decisive push on Orikhiv, it could also be a diversion ahead of a larger strike elsewhere. Clarity will come in the next 48 hours. Conclusion: Northern Front, Sumy, Kursk. Russian consolidation near Gornal. Kursk Oblast nearing full control. Kupansk. Russian forces press toward Kupiansk's northwestern flank. Lyman sector, Ukrainian retreats near Novomykhailivka. Frontline collapse likely south of Zaria-Romanivka. Chasiv Yar Toretsk, Russian gains in Hryhorivka, pivotal battle for the mine near Toretsk. Pokrovsk, South Donetsk, Russian advances on Novopavlivka and Bodanivka. Dnipro-Enahaya confirmed under Russian control. Orikhiv, potential beginning of the Orikhiv offensive via Mala Tokmachka. Zelensky's warning of a late April Russian offensive appears validated. The next days will reveal whether this is the main thrust or a prelude to larger operations. Stay tuned. Subscribe for real-time updates.